Alright, welcome to Wednesday. Today we are looking at circle graphs. We're going to look at reading circle graphs today. We will not be making circle graphs, just reading them. So let's jump into today. Hopefully you guys can see what's going on here. So in this circle graph, you guys see the title of it, and they should all have titles. This says Funds Raised for Missions Trip. In hundreds of dollars. And so we look in January and we see a 2, and when they say hundreds of dollars, that means $200, right? So in January they raised $200, in February they raised $100, in March they raised $400, April $500, May $600, and June $400. So based on this pie chart, this is all the funds that they raised for their missions trip. Let's go answer the questions. So number 1 says, in which month did the most money come in? How much? Well, looking here with a circle graph, the nice thing about them, we can quickly visualize what is going on. Quickly by looking over here, well, which section is the largest in the circle graph? Well, it's this one, right? And we can see that that is from May. So the month that most money came in was May. And the second part to this question was how much? Well, we look and we see a 6. Did $6 come in? No, we said it's hundreds of dollars, right? So we would say May is $600. All right, then moving to number 2. Number 2 says, in which month did the least money come in? How much? I want you to do that one, and then we'll check our answers with each other. So I'll give you about 10 seconds to write your answers down. You should have 2 answers. This is, in which month did the least money come in? How much? All right, and you should have had February. And how much? You should have had not one, but $100. All right, moving to number 3. Number 3 says, by how much does the most exceed the least? Well, the most we know, we wrote it up here in number 1, was 600, and the least is 100. So how can we find how much it exceeded the least? What would we do to find out how much it exceeded the least? We would subtract, right? So 600 minus 100, very easy mental math, is $500. All right, last question for this circle graph. And sometimes we call these circle graphs pie charts. Your book calls them circle graphs, by the way. How much money did Jeremy raise for his mission trip? How can we figure out how much total he raised for his mission trip? We can take, right? Hopefully you're answering this as I'm putting it out there, that we can take and add up all of these numbers here. Now I'm just going to add them, and then at the end add the hundreds on the back. So we have 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 plus 5 is 12, 12 plus 6 is 18, and 18 plus 4 is 22. And remember, that's hundreds of dollars, so $2,200 or $2,200 was the total amount he raised for his missions trip. All right, let's look at our next example. We have one more example, and then we'll get to your homework. This example, we see the title, Preferred Sports. We can see we have basketball, soccer, volleyball, golf, baseball, hockey. I know that's hard to see. Hopefully you can see it on your own sheet. And football. And these are the percents of people that prefer them. Now in number 1, it says which sport is the most preferred. And again, circle graphs or pie charts are very easy for this type of thing. We can quickly look, and that's the whole point. We're trying to make data visual. So when people look at it, they understand what the numbers were. So quickly looking at it, which sport is most preferred? Well, it's basketball. No surprise there, right? We all love basketball. All right, number 2, which sport is the least preferred according to this survey? Again, we can quickly look and see that it is volleyball. All right, all you volleyball players, please don't be offended. This is just a problem from your textbook. Number 3, what is the difference in the percents between the most and least preferred sports? Well, we said the most preferred was basketball, least preferred was volleyball. Basketball, 25%, and volleyball was, let's see, 6%. And difference means what? Difference means subtract. So we need to subtract those two. 25% minus 6% would be 19%. All right, Number 4 says, what percent prefer either baseball or golf? What percent prefer either baseball or golf? Well, what percent prefer baseball? Well, we can see 21. What percent prefer golf? 9. So either baseball or golf, what would we do with 21 and 9? We would add them up. So 21 plus 9 is 30%. So 30% of people prefer either baseball or golf. Okay, number 5 and 6, we're going to do a little work with percents. Number 5 says, if the graph represents responses from 100 people, how many of these people prefer football? So they're saying if this graph represents responses from 100 people, and it says that 12% prefer football, how many people would that be? Well, what would 12% of 100 be? How could we find that? Well, we could take 12% of 100. Let me write that word out, or part out. 12% of 100. What does of mean here? What should we do here? We should multiply. So we have 100 times, and instead of 12%, we need it as a decimal, so 0.12. Now, do we actually need to multiply this out? You could. So if you're not sure what another way to do it, go ahead and just multiply it out. Or could we just move the decimals based on the fact that there's two, we're multiplying by 100 and there are 2 zeros? Yeah, so could we take 0.12 and move the decimal point place 2 times to the right and get out the number 12? Yeah, so 12 people out of 100 people, if that's what this graph represented, 12 people would prefer football. And you guys may notice that's the exact same percent that was already there. And that's because this is 100 people. So that would actually work for all of them, right? If this was from 100 people, the responses were from 100 people, then 25 people would like basketball, 19 people would like soccer, 6 people would like volleyball, and so on. Now let's move to number 6, which is similar but just a little bit different. Number 6 says, if the graph represents responses from 36 responses, so now this graph doesn't represent 100 people, only 36 people. So they asked 36 people what they preferred, and these were their responses. How many people prefer basketball? Well, it's going to be similar to the problem before. 36 responses, right? Now, 25% of people prefer basketball. So we could say 25% of, and instead of 100 like before, we have 36 responses. So 25% of 36. Now, some of you might be able to do this mentally because 25% is equivalent to a familiar fraction, and we can find that of 36. If you're not sure, let's do the multiplication. 36 times, we know of means times, 25%, which is 0.25. All right, let's multiply it out. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 3 plus 3 is 18. We leave a space. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 3 plus 1 is 7. And we get 0 and 10 and 9. And we go to place our decimal point, and it says to move it 2 times over, right? So 1, 2, and we get out the number 9. Now, is 9 25% of 36 or 1/4 of 36? Yeah. So 9 people prefer basketball if this graph represents 36 people. All right, remember, if you're having any difficulty or any questions, to email me. We can also set up a one-on-one Zoom meeting to go over any questions, so let me know if you need that. So with that in mind, let's move to our homework. Your homework is to look at this graph. This graph represents band instruments that students play, okay? So we can see all these different numbers of students that play these different instruments, and you're going to answer these questions. Use those notes problems to help you. You have 6 homework problems. Make sure when you finish, you send me a picture of your work, and I will see you tomorrow.